Well, we all remember the Urban Meyer days when, I mean, he prided himself in trying to block a punt every game. And what is the stat? If you block a punt, the percentage of winning goes up to 75% or some crazy thing. And I mean, they would, I would be out of practice. I'd watch Coach Meyer and this bunch of teams, and they would work on blocking punts, learning to dive at the right block point of the kick. And they would work on it for hours, man. I mean, it was just incredible. And it worked. We would block them like crazy or block field goals. And then all of a sudden, if you just kind of forget, it's almost like watching. I go out to high school football practices, and they won't even work on the field goals as the kicking. And I'm like, and I would tell these high school coaches, do you realize that every time your kicker goes out on the field, it is to score a point?
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Meldon Law Studios at the Hacienda. Okay, and welcome into another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. Appreciate everybody who is a part of this show, including our producer, Zach Rothrock. Got a good show for you today. We got a double dose. We're going to give you Andrea Adelson from ESPN. We'll talk a little bit of ACC with her, as well as her alma mater, the University of Florida. And then we will also talk to Judd Davis about the place kicking situation in Florida and how proud he is of some of the people in the past that he has kicked against. And he'll play yes, no, where, maybe with us as well. All right, so we got all that coming up. And then on Monday, of course, Coach Spurrier will be back. Can't wait to see what he's got to say about the first week of games. Next Thursday, Ben Troop will join us. Look forward to talking to Ben about opening day and what that's like when you're a player. I did want to say one thing about the passing of Dolly Parton. A big fan of hers. I'm not a big country music fan, but I like country music. I think it's possible to like stuff and not love it. I like country music. There's a lot of songs I like, and I really was a big fan of hers as a person and just as an actress. She was great. She was great in everything, and just one of the greatest people. I started thinking about how, being a lapsed Catholic, but whether they should make Saint Dolly. That'd be pretty cool. Should be a saint. But she was a saint, and that's terrible. I did want to also talk about Coach Spurrier's party on Thursday night. I know he doesn't like to talk about parties like that, but it was unbelievable. So many people I hadn't seen in so long. And then when all the coaches were there, Coach Summerall was there. I'm not Coach Summerall. I'm sorry. Coach O'Sullivan, the other one, the other S, and Mouse was there. I talked to Mouse a little bit. We just had a great time and appreciate all the people there. Appreciate them for inviting us. Appreciate Amy and Lisa for inviting us. And great seeing them, of course. It just, I could give you a long list of people. Ben Bennett, I had a long conversation with him because I covered him in the USFL with the Jacksonville Bulls. So we talked about that a little bit. Anyway, that was a great time. Let's go ahead, though. We have got to get going. We got a lot of things to cover today. So let's get to our Money Metals starting five. MoneyMetals.com is your home for gold and silver purchases, one of the largest distributors in all the United States. 2 Gator grads are running it, and you can reach them at 1-800-800-1865 or at moneymetals.com. Okay, well, the big story of the day is obviously what's happened in the different conferences. It started with the Big Ten. Bled to the SEC. The Big 12 is on board. I'm sure the ACC is going to come on board. And they're basically saying, hey, if you declare for the NFL draft, you're done. And the SEC expanded it to include the NBA draft, the WNBA draft, although I can't think of that many players who have. Maybe they're just trying to plug that hole before it becomes an issue. But, there's no doubt that this is an issue that's not over yet. It's not even close to being over. Anybody who thinks it is, thought it was over before, and then thought it was over before that. It is. I wrote a thing for my Patreon site where I talked about how the Beatles song, "It's Getting Better All the Time." It seems like it feels like it's getting worse all the time, and I just can't wait for games. I need games so bad, but it's certainly not over. And they've given this great. I mean, I don't know if it's great power. It's a lot of power to Greg Sankey, who can now say, hey, I am going to suspend you for a half season if you take these players. And he's just basically threatening them. So now the lawyers are back involved and they're issuing statements. It's so far from over. Everything we're going to tell you over the next couple of months is probably going to be, and we'll see what happens next. It's a dark hole, and I don't like it, and nobody likes it. Everybody's upset about it. Everybody thinks it's ridiculous, but this is something. Again, I truly believe this, that the NCAA could have solved a long time ago if they had been thinking ahead. And look, this is everybody in a lot of ways. There's not a lot of people that were like thinking ahead that this could happen. But when it started to happen, the NCAA didn't really step in. Going all the way back to Ed O'Banion and people like that, they just should have done it differently. Now, it's easy to second guess, but that's why we are where we are. Fortunately, football season is getting ready to start, but we'll see what happens. I do think it's going to be interesting. 16-0 vote, 16 to nothing vote, to not let NFL players, once you declare for the NFL, you're done. And that should be the thing. Now, it's interesting because you can explore in the NBA, you can go to their camp and then redeclare to come back. But in football, you can't now. I don't know if you can in the NBA anymore. It's so complicated, peeps. I mean, it is driving me nuts, and it's driving you nuts. And we're all sitting here going, hey, we just want to have football games because we love them. We love the sport. You guys keep trying to push us away. You keep saying, no, it's not me, it's you. We're going to break up. And we keep going, nah, we want to give it another chance. We're George Costanza. Anyway, so that was the big story of the week, and it's obviously a lot of sports talk. And everybody kind of feels the same way. It's kind of like with some of these other things that have happened lately in the news. I'm trying to think of a good example. It might have been the Jaden Daniels #5 thing where everybody was agreed on one thing, or the Sorsby thing. Yeah, everybody was kind of agreed on how it should go, and it ended up being that way. And you hope eventually that's what happens here, but I don't know, man. I just don't know. Well, I don't know where we're going. I do know where we're going, though, in the short term, which is to a football Saturday. All right, let's get to number 2 on our Money Medals starting 5. And that is, of course, last Monday when we did the show, we didn't find out until we were almost done with the show that Aaron Philo had been named the starting quarterback. And I think Aaron Philo's parents might have found out the same way, or somebody, Pete Thamel somehow got it from somebody, because it clearly was not something they were ready to release. But it did come out. So, look, that's what happens with quarterbacks. And with quarterback, going all the way back to Fatone Bauta. Remember that? The Georgia quarterback? They were going to surprise Florida with the option and bench the starter. I can't remember who the starter was then. But so he's going to start, and he tells his parents tell the coach tells media. Next thing you know, it's out on Tuesday. Florida can get ready for it, and Florida kills him. And he's not very good in the game. These things happen. But certainly for Aaron Philo, he and Tramel Jones both talking to the media this week, both, sounded great and everything. Again, we just want to see what it looks like. But the bottom line is the hype has already gotten big. And this is what it means to be the starting quarterback at the University of Florida, or the starting quarterback at Georgia, or the starting quarterback at Texas or Texas Tech. Now, we'll get to that at some point. When you're the starting quarterback at a big school with a lot of money, that's spending a lot of money, and the fans are going to show up, 90,000 are going to show up for these games. Hey, there's a lot of pressure comes with it. How do you handle that pressure? Now Aaron Philo, we get to find out. Everybody has broken down his Georgia Tech tape and his high school tape and everything. This is different. This is starting quarterback at the University of Florida and then eventually playing in the SEC tape that you'll be able to break down. And I don't expect Florida to show a lot, but the offense is they're gonna attack what FAU doesn't do well, and I don't know what it is, and I'm gonna research it very hard over the next couple of weeks, but that is going to be huge for me to kind of get to know this team. I did something a way back, but that was after spring football, but we'll talk about that a little bit next week. So we'll see what happens here. I have been thinking about this a lot too, because people keep asking me. My friend John Ryan was going back and forth. We were going back and forth about maybe me going to the game. If I don't sit in the press box, sit with him in his box seats. So I haven't decided what I'm gonna do yet. You know how I am with that. Anyway, I was thinking about this. So first six, second six, it's unbelievable the difference. And I think Florida really is confident about the beginning of this season, the first six games, and they feel really good about them. And I don't know whether they'll be. You'd like them to be like 5-1, yeah. The back six, though, think about this. They only have 2 home games in the back six. That's going to be rough, and you're adding in better teams in some cases, and then it gets a little softer at the end. We'll see how FSU is. Nobody has any idea. Anyway, I just was thinking about that today. All right, let's move along to number 3 on our Money Metals starting 5. Money Metals is a place to go for all your needs. If you want to buy or sell coins, it is a place to go. And also for that silver Gator coin. All right. Number 3 is we do know more about quarterbacks. The Philo thing came out, of course, Monday. Vanderbilt is named Blaze Berlowitz, who is a kid who came there from Pavia. He and Pavia came together, and he backed him up, but didn't really play very much last year. But he knows the offense, and so he got the starting job over the 5-star Jared Curtis. That's interesting. But he will play in the game. Well, we'll see. I mean, I think it's a smart move. You got a guy who knows the offense, has been around the program for a while versus a incoming freshman. Tennessee naming 5-star Faison Brandon as their starter. We'll just see. Again, nobody knows what this is going to look like. Everybody can watch practice. Everybody can watch tape. Nobody knows what it's going to look like. And I mentioned Brendan Sorsby. When the whole Texas Tech thing happened. Well, now we thought that there was a rumor that Raiola was going to go there after he'd already gone to Oregon as a backup to Dante Moore, and then now Castellanos, who was at FSU last year, is going to take advantage of this 5th-year thing. And I can't tell you if he's eligible or not. I have no idea. None whatsoever. This is where we are with this situation right now. Right now, I think he's technically eligible, but it may not be eligible. But because the Big 12 said you can't play these guys if they declare, but he didn't declare, but he got in the portal, but they say he didn't have it's going to give me a headache eventually, which could be today. So let's get to number 4 on our moneymetals.com starting 5, and that is that we have football. We have football this weekend. I'm excited. I am thrilled beyond belief. I know that I am a nerd for college football to the point where I can watch games that literally you go, how in the world could you watch that game? And I'll be watching the first Saturday starting at noon. But the interesting part of that game, the TCU North Carolina game, which is kind of the marquee game, and it's 2 unranked teams, I believe, right? I don't think either one's ranked. But it is a marquee game because it's 2 names. They're names. They're not blue bloods or anything like that. And then you have Belichick and that whole thing, which is a giant mess. But now we've got this TCU thing where they denied credentials to a writer from the Fort Worth Star Telegram, which is a very reputable paper, a very good paper. I didn't even know they were still covering the team, but that's the way it is in newspapers today. But it's a really good paper, and now everybody, of course, in the media is very upset about it. I don't know enough about it. Apparently it was because he was reporting on an assault that happened in the locker room. There's questions about things. I don't know enough about it to comment on it. I just don't think. I think pulling your credential is kind of a childish move. It's been threatened before. Never to me. I don't think it's ever been threatened of me. No. But it's been threatened of other people, not at Florida. I can't remember anybody at Florida getting their credential pulled. Maybe somebody did. Because they want more people at the game. Hey, look, freedom of speech. The guy that was the king of that was Mike Slive. He would always say that. Hey, freedom of speech, man. You can say what you want. All right. So anyway, that's number 4, and there's a lot of other games, and we'll get to those when we get to the swamp games of the weekend, because we want to give you all the games that are being played. But number 5 on our Money Metals starting 5 is the NFL making some news, and they had to get in the mix. I don't think there's going to be a lot of interest in some of the games this weekend, or any of the games, to be honest. But they eliminated the Pro Bowl, which has been, that needed to happen a long time ago. It had turned into a circus, which was fine for the fans that were there, but it was not a television event. And the games were never a television event when they did happen. Then they played flag, and then they had the beach, and a guy got hurt. Robert Edwards, I think, blew his knee out playing beach volleyball one year. And I think most All-Star games should go away. I guess the baseball All-Star game is still, there's some romanticism there. I don't ever watch it. But All-Star games they aren't that interesting anymore. Guys are leaving and going and coming, and the interleague play, everybody plays everybody. They're just not that interesting. But I'm glad and they also put this rule in that safety features, and said, look, if you do 3 things in a game, and it's like spearing and launching and hip tackles, they're trying to outlaw. You're suspended for the next game, and so they're trying to make it softer. And I know that maybe some people don't agree with that part of it, but there's some times when you just go, man. And you've seen this if you're watching the Hard Knocks with these Seattle players that keep going down. It's sad to think about this, and to think about people losing their jobs. But anyway, all right, that's going to do it for our Money Metals starting 5. We'll take a break, and when we come back, Andrea Adelson will join us from ESPN. We'll talk to her about the ACC and her Florida Gators, and we will then talk to Judd Davis, of course, former Gator kicker, winner of the Groza Award. All this and more coming up on another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios.
Give me 60 seconds and I'll show you why you should be buying silver and how to get started. Recent price spikes in groceries, healthcare, gasoline, steel, and lumber tell the story of inflation, as do raging bull markets in equities and housing. As the reality of all this inflation sinks in, investors will be acting quickly to diversify and protect themselves, their families, and their assets. That's why we're offering our Silver Starter Kit to help you get started in holding tangible wealth. This mix of our most recommended forms of silver includes 9 silver coins, totaling 4 troy ounces of fine silver. These pure silver coins have a low bid-ask spread, the difference between the price you pay to buy and the price you receive to sell. Low transaction costs are one reason Investopedia calls Money Metals the best dealer in America. Don't waste any more time. Start protecting your savings today with physical precious metals at moneymetals.com/go.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, and coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. It is a great pleasure anytime we bring on Andrea Adelson from ESPN and the ACC Network, where she has become a superstar. All I do is every time I flip it around, I go, "Hey, there's Andrea," and she's always on. You're always on TV. You become a star.
You're too kind. I feel like I'm still living that sports writer life. So the whole TV part of it is just like, wait, is this actually happening to me? It all still feels like a fever dream at this point, Pat.
Well, that's the thing. If you're living the sports writer life, then you're complaining about free food. I know that. What do you do for a living? That's the best you've done. I don't know, Andrea, if we've ever been at a time on week 0 when we needed a game more than we need a game.
My gosh.
Not only has it been it feels like 31 days is too long for August in the first place. Secondly, all the crap that's going on here, and we don't know where it's going to stand, and we don't know where it stands now. But I'm sure you feel the same way.
I feel like every year we say the same thing because it feels like we've been a hamster on a wheel since COVID, quite frankly, right? Because we all had to go through that and what was going to happen. And then the next year was like, okay, it's going to be full stadiums again. We absolutely have to have this. And then we started with name, image, and likeness, the very first iteration of that, right? Oh, but we need games. And then it's rev share. And then it's eligibility. And now it's, I don't know who's eligible to play a game now, Pat. I mean, it could change by the time this thing airs. I mean, who knows? I can't even keep track of who's on what roster at this point. Who's going to the NFL? But no, he's not in the NFL. He's in college. But wait, what's happening in this courthouse in California that may affect what happens in Gainesville for players there? So I feel like not only do I need like a law degree, I need like 10 telephones, 20 iPhones, and all sorts of other technology to keep up with it. So yes, I agree with you. We need some football as a palate cleanser. Who would have thought, right? Yeah. We would be saying we need football games to be palate cleansers because of everything that's happening right now.
I remember I had a class, Joanne Smith was the teacher, and it was at Florida, and it was law and the media, and I didn't pay attention to it. I scraped through with a C, that now I wish I had paid attention to it because then I could maybe talk smartly about all this that's going on. But I mean, we'll just wait and see. Let's just talk some football, okay? And it starts with a big game for North Carolina, obviously at noon in Dublin. I'm looking forward to it. That way, like you said, cleanse your palate, watch football. Big game for Bill Belichick because it's not been a great offseason for him, nor was last offseason.
No, it hasn't. And it's funny because it's like, well, would you rather the headlines with Jordan Hudson, or would you rather the headlines with your general manager now at an HR investigation and your son who's now on leave and don't know if he's actually going to be there to coach the game on Saturday? And I find it interesting you say you're looking forward to it because the last time these two teams played, North Carolina, they got up to this unbelievable start, right? They marched down the field, they score a touchdown, and that was it. They lost 41-7 to TCU. So, the big question here is not just about all this off-field stuff that has happened with Michael Lombardi and his son, Steve. Bobby Petrino, of all people, is now running the offense for North Carolina. And they've got another transfer quarterback that they're hoping to rely on to be able to kind of right the ship. Their defense actually got better as the year went on last year, and they have one of the most productive guys in terms of sacks coming back in Melkart Abujaude. But in terms of what this offense is going to look like, I feel like the arrow is pointed up because Bobby Petrino, everywhere he goes, at least the offenses score some points. But North Carolina's schedule this year is so much harder than it was a year ago. And I don't know if the offensive line is that much better. I don't know if the skill positions are that much better. I don't know if they're going to be able to run the football. So those are all big time question marks for North Carolina. And I think there's a lot of people in Chapel Hill who are just waiting for this thing to end.
Yeah, I think it could end fairly soon. Who knows? And speaking of ending, possibly, we'll see what happens with Mike Norvell. I assume they'll get past New Mexico State. I assume that.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, then you got Alabama coming up, and there are going to be some big games for them. I don't know. Like they're over under 6.5. So does that mean 7 allows Mike Norvell to stay, the lack of money that FSU has. I mean, do you see a over-under that he's got to hit?
Well, that's a good question. And their athletic director, Michael Alford, has been kind of cagey in terms of trying to put an actual win total on it. Because if you look at Florida State's schedule, and I'm just going to like quickly read it off because it is, I think, the hardest schedule in the ACC. You mentioned Alabama, but they open Labor Day night against SMU, which is one of the teams that's projected to make it back into the ACC championship game. The last time they played SMU, they got absolutely trucked. And that was in 24. That was their 2-10 year. It was bad. Florida State is absolutely in a much better spot now than they were in 2024. But SMU returns a third-year starting quarterback in Kevin Jennings. They return what I think is going to be one of the most explosive offenses in the country. And defensively, they should be better. SMU is not going to be afraid or intimidated or scared of going into Tallahassee. Kevin Jennings knows what happened the last time they played. So you've got that game. You mentioned Alabama. Let's say Florida State opens like 1-2. After that, I'm going to pull it up right here because I believe in some order. Here we go. Okay, Central Arkansas, they should get past them. They have Virginia, which beat them last year in double overtime, at Louisville, at Miami, and Clemson, all in a row, right? Not exactly a schedule that makes you feel like, yeah, that'll give them an opportunity to right the ship right away, right? I mean, sometimes when you get some of those non-conference games early on, you get some home games early on, maybe that can give you some confidence. New Mexico State, sure, but then SMU open at Alabama, and then you get Virginia, Louisville, Miami, and Clemson all in a row. That's going to be tough, Pat. So that's why I think Michael Alford doesn't really want to put a win total on it, because you look at the degree of difficulty of the schedule, but they also feel really good about what they did in terms of upgrading the roster. So is 7 wins going to be enough, especially if maybe one of those wins is SMU, Clemson, Louisville, some combination of that? It very well could be, right? So a lot of it, I think, is going to be based on how they look, how they play, and if they feel as if enough progress has been made in terms of where they're at competitively. And this was a team that lost a lot of close games last year, and when things went south, they all imploded. So I think they need to see them have more resilience than they've had over the last few years. So I don't know. I don't think it's let's say they start 1-2. I don't think it's a given that Florida State's gonna be like, we're done. Because Michael Alford isn't the type of guy who's just going to run a coach out after 3 games. He's just not. But maybe there's pressure from the boosters. Maybe there's pressures from other folks who are like, we can't keep going around in the circle because the fan discontent is at an all-time high right now. So that's a very long-winded way of saying, I don't think there's a win total. But I think they have to get to a bowl game. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, I don't think they can go under 500. Yeah, I mean, if they're 5-7, that may be enough for them, because I mean this is a once proud program, like Florida was a once proud program, like Auburn was a once proud program, has now had 5 straight losing years. It's all cyclical, and it's in a bad cycle for a lot of teams. One team is not in a bad cycle for. By the way, I wanted to mention SMU is favored in Tallahassee. The early come out, so that'll be
they're ranked.
Yeah,
they're top 25 team, preseason top 25 team, Pat. So they're not going to be scared or intimidated. And when I've talked to Rhett Lashley throughout the offseason, he's like, we have the potential to be the best team I've ever had at SMU. I think that speaks volumes to where that program is.
So that'll probably tell you then that SMU and Miami will play in the ACC championship game, because Miami, I mean, everybody's just assuming they're going to win, and which I mean, they got really good players again this year. I don't see anybody knocking them off, but we'll see. We'll see if it's all. You never know how it's all going to mesh,
Right, you don't. And if Miami does not make the ACC championship game this year, it will be among the most colossal failures that Miami has ever had, because they're outspending everybody in the ACC right now in terms of what they're paying their roster. They go out and make these splashy moves, getting Darian Mensah at the very last minute to be their quarterback. Obviously, they got his top receiver, Cooper Barcape. They have a lot of players coming back from last year's team that came, like a drive away from winning a national championship if Carson Beck doesn't throw that ball. And makes a different decision. Who knows what happens? Maybe it's Miami holding up the trophy. So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectation. Miami has not played for an ACC championship under Mario Cristobal. I think it's important for people to remember that, right? Because going to the national championship game last year, I think erased some of the fact that they laid an egg on the road against SMU and at home against Louisville. They were out-coached, out-schemed in both of those games. And they were left for dead, essentially, after the SMU loss, right? And so it's one of those things when you look at Miami historically in the ACC, it doesn't matter who the coach has been, right? Manny Diaz, Mario Cristobal, Al Golden, Randy Shane, you name it. They find ways to lose games that they shouldn't lose, right? This is not just a Mario Cristobal problem. This has been a Miami problem, right? And so now when you're the prohibitive favorite and the target's on your back and everyone's like, well, they should run completely through the ACC and have no problem at all. I don't know if I believe that, right? Yeah. I mean, history tells you there will be a problem that crops up at some point. And then how do they deal with that adversity? And obviously they're on the road against Notre Dame. It's not an ACC game, but that's a game in November that Notre Dame's already fired up to play, and I'm sure Miami will be too. But I'm not necessarily ready to say Miami is anointed and they're going undefeated because they just have better players and more money than everybody else. We're going to have to see how it plays out. I will say, though, their early season schedule sets up really nicely for them to make this run that everyone's kind of expecting them to make.
Last question for you, because we're curious about Georgia Tech, because obviously Faulkner came from Georgia Tech. Haynes King is obviously gone on to the NFL, assuming he doesn't want to come back. I don't know. But that's a team that you just kind of wonder if they're gonna take a step back with the people they lost. But I don't know. You know them better than I do. What do you think about Georgia Tech this year?
Well, I'm going to say two things. Having watched Buster Faulkner and that offense the last few years at Georgia Tech, I think that was the best move that John Summerall could have made of any of his coaching moves, is bringing in Buster Faulkner, not just because Aaron Philo now has won the starting job and he's got some players familiar with the offense. That offense, first of all, they've got an offensive coordinator, and they've got an offensive coordinator who's dynamic and who can craft the offense around the players that he has. And so that gives me a lot of hope and optimism for what Florida can be. At least more hope and optimism that I've felt over the last 5 years, Pat. So that's one, because I've watched Georgia Tech. And I think those concerns about them taking a step back are valid, quite frankly, because Haynes King was so much of their offense, and they did so much with him that it just elevated all of those players around him. They were able to have this impressive ground game. The offensive line was strong. They had depth at running back. Now you bring in George Godsey as your offensive coordinator, coming from the NFL. He may be a Georgia Tech guy, but it's going to be different. You've got a whole new running back room. You've got a quarterback in Alberto Mendoza who hasn't started a game before. He's different than Haynes King. And the thing that set Haynes King apart to me wasn't just the ability to do both, run and pass. The heart and soul of that team. And you know how important those intangibles are to any team. When you've got a guy like that everybody wants to give max effort for every single rep, every single down, when that leaves the room, what happens to the rest of the team, right? Where is the leadership? And I feel like there may be a leadership void. Having said that, Brent Key finds a way to win games. I mean, he's a guy, they're going to have a strong offensive line. They're going to run the ball. They feel like they have 4 running backs they can hand the ball off to. I'm sure they're going to do that more than maybe they generally would to get Alberto kind of comfortable in the offense. But I think that the fears of maybe taking a step back are a little bit warranted because of not just losing Buster, but just the key pieces of that offense from a year ago.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what that offense looks like here.
Yeah.
Those
Me too.
They have, I mean, you're a UF alum too. This has not been fun the last 5 years.
No, it hasn't been fun, but now to know there's an actual dedicated offensive coordinator, somebody who's been in the SEC before, right? Obviously, because of where he was at Georgia before Georgia Tech. So he's kind of familiar with the conference, but also he's just creative in the way that he runs the offense, right? I mean, he is one of the brightest play callers, and I think anybody around the country would tell you that. And so when you've got the talent coming back that Florida does at the skill positions, right? and you've got a quarterback who's familiar with the scheme. And by the way, Georgia Tech was not happy to lose Aaron Philo. I mean, they were thrilled last year when he stayed to play behind Haynes King because they kept him, they paid him, thought he was happy. But then obviously Buster leaves and he goes and follows Buster. So that's a situation where Georgia Tech probably wishes they had Aaron Philo, quite frankly, because he was the next in line. So again, when you put all these pieces together, right, you know about what happened at Georgia Tech. You know how they felt about Aaron Philo. Then you have Jaden Baugh and those receivers. I don't know. I'm trying to not get too excited, Pat, but I feel like it could be a good year for Florida.
It might be. I hope it is. Because it'd be better than the alternative.
No kidding.
Hey,
just score points. Forget about the defense. Just score points, and you'll make Florida fans happy.
Exactly. until you don't score enough, and then they'll go, well, we need a new defense. Always great talking to you, Andrea. Great job you're doing on the ACC network. And I know your shows are coming up, and it'll be exciting. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're really busy, because I see you all the time. and moving your daughter into school and everything else.
Yeah. I know it's that time of year, and she's got friends who are Gators right now, started school, all moved in, super excited. Her best friends at Florida. So she's already like, when can I go to Gainesville? So, that's a good sign. She wants to go and visit her friends at Florida, but always appreciate the kindness, Pat, and the friendship that we've had I'm not going to put a number on it. I'm not going to tell people how long we've known each other, but I always appreciate the support.
Well, I appreciate you, Andrea. We'll be back with more of another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios right after this break.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
And our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
With the new football coach in town, everybody's talking about what it will take to build a winning program. Well, here's one thing we know. It takes more than just great offense. You need disciplined offense, a defense, a special teams. Miss one of those, and you're probably not going to have the season you hope for. Same thing is true when it comes to losing weight and improving your health. At BMI TeleMed, we call it the three-legged stool. The first leg is a GLP-1 medication when it's appropriate. It's a powerful tool, but it's only part of the game. Second leg is your medical team providing individualized coaching on nutrition, strength, training, sleep, and healthy habits. And the third, and maybe the most important, is you. Your commitment, your consistency, your willingness to stay with the game plan. With these three pieces working together, that's what success looks like. Not just losing weight, but improving your health and keeping the weight off. Kick off your weight loss by calling BMI TeleMed at 727-383-1677 to schedule a free consultation. Adams Rib Company has been a staple of Gainesville for more than a decade and a staple of the Dooley house ever since Kelsey's teeth came in. The first time I walked into Adams, I told my daughter that the green beans are always a test of a great barbecue restaurant, and they were perfect. About the ribs that melt in your mouth, and my favorite, the turkey plate. But be sure to go in on Fridays for Nana's Fish Nuggets. They will melt in your mouth. Adams Rib Co., a Gainesville great. Okay, welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging and coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. It is great to bring on our great friend, Judd Davis, Lou Groza Award winner in 1994, champion golfer of the year. That's the way we're going to introduce him today. Judd, how are you today?
Doing good. Yeah. Everything's going good. Ready to get this season going. How's everything going with you?
It's going good, and it's been going really good for our friend Trey Smack. It's been fun to see. I played golf with him last summer, and man, he is. I am so proud of him.
He's the real deal. I got to know Trey over the years. We would text back and forth after games and stuff, and that kid is legit, man. I've been out to practice many times, and that kid's got a big leg. And if he gets a good hold on a good snap, and the NFL, it's literally automatic. And He hasn't missed, right? He had a 58 yarder the other night.
I think he's had 2 58-yarders now. Yeah.
God, and he was brought in to kind of fix that problem at Green Bay. There's a lot of pressure, and then not to mention kicking at Green Bay is not easy. That weather up there. But he's we're gonna see what we can do as filling his shoes. But man, that's gonna affect some games for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I don't know. There's places maybe like Auburn. I'm trying to think of other schools. You could make the PKU. Because Florida is. You can say it's place kicker U when you look at all the guys that are playing in the NFL. Eddie Piñeiro's still playing. Obviously McPherson. Now Trace Mack joining them. There's several kickers up there. There's been a great run of kickers, not only coming through here but going to UF. I'm sorry,
NFL. Both punters and kickers.
Yeah,
it's funny. I'd like to, they always, DBU or something. But as far as kicker U, I don't know. I think we go head to head with anybody, just like you said. At McPherson with the Bengals, Piñeiro is still going. He's with San Francisco. I don't know if you know. Well, look at the stats because you have to have 100 career field goal attempts to be put in the all-time lists of NFL, and I think Eddie is leading all time. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, I think he just did because somebody like Tucker missed a couple of kicks last year.
Wait a minute, the Dallas kicker, the young guy, he just got in the mix. Dallas Cowboys. No, he doesn't have enough yet. But yeah, Piñeiro. But I'm telling you what, man, it's there's been, I don't know what it is about Florida and the kickers, but there's just, if you go down the list, it's pretty damn impressive, man.
Yeah.
People don't realize it.
Yeah, and it's important. Look, and I think that's the way it is too with this team because my gut feeling is that. Now, I know everybody wants to see what we saw with Spurrier was here, and it was 52-20, all the time. But my gut feeling is there's going to be a lot of games that are going to come down to the fourth quarter, and a lot of games that are come down to a couple, maybe a big kick and everything. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Patrick Durkin's shoulders as well.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. I was watching him in the bowl. Well, last year I watched him some of the game with Tulane with Summerall, and he's not a very big kid. He's more of a throwback to a smaller kicker. But he was 25 of 28 last year. Had a 52-yarder. What is the conference AAC conference special teams player of the year? So yeah, he's legit. But I don't know what his range is if he can go out and. With Trey, you need a 60-yarder. You may or may not make it, but it's got to get the distance. But you're right. There's going to be at least 2 games where it's going to come down to that kid. Yeah, you're right. I don't see we running away with these things. But, and then Alec Clark's got to replace Tommy Doman too. That people don't realize how much, if you got a punter that can flip the field, that's huge. But you get a couple of the, he's punting from his old goal line and he a little off the side of his foot for 31 yards. That people take the punters completely for granted. You got a guy that can turn it over like we've had in the past. So that's going to affect for sure win loss a couple of games.
Yeah, I saw Tommy Doman playing the other day. I can't remember where he was. Was it Buffalo maybe? He was punting for somebody and I can't remember, but again, this was still preseason, so we'll see how he does. Now I call that a crawshaw. Anytime you shank one punt a game, that's what it's called because he was even doing it down in Denver.
Yeah, Crawshaw. That kid when he connects, it's bomb fest, right? But then out of nowhere, right, you get that shank. You don't know. These guys have gotten so good now, and a lot of people. I don't know if I've told you the ball in the NFL. That's why these people just think all of a sudden these guys have all gotten stronger. They have, but no, they changed the whole K ball in the NFL now. The team gets the big batch of balls before the season, and they can prepare that leather, put them in the dryer, let them tumble, mud, brush them down. By the time it's done, it's like you're hitting a legal golf ball or a legal driver in golf. The ball now in the NFL carries 7 yards further in the air. Just because how broken in it is, people just have any idea. What for the Kansas City, he made a 69-yarder. The other night.
Butker, yeah.
it's crazy. And that just, when you see that ball come back and it's a nice, dark, shiny ball, and it was broke, it just, your confidence level goes to the roof, you know?
It's like somebody putting a steak in front of you and saying, it's please enjoy, you know? But that's the thing. Yeah, it's crazy that is a situation, but that's fine. But that makes coaches sometimes get more conservative when they get into games. And I think that kind of bit Napier in the butt a little bit because he knew he had smack and he would but then he would also then go for it when I don't know. Hey, I'm not going to talk about him anymore. That's what I've decided.
Yeah, we all know that. I think he was his own worst enemy by not hiring an offensive coordinator. I think him going in the 2024 season by winning the last 4 games with him, it's maybe the worst thing that could have happened to him, right? Because it made Strickland say, well, maybe right, can call plays, but he needed to focus on other things because some of the play calling. You know what drove me crazy the most, Pat, is every single time we had a big play, over the middle for 30 yards, you knew a dive was coming up the middle. It's almost like the crowd was too loud. I need to quiet. I never could understand it. Where Coach Spurrier, remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
You would almost capitalize and do another big play, right? But I don't know. Summerall doesn't seem like the type of guy wants to quiet the crowd down for anything. This guy he's intense.
Well, and the other thing, and I asked actually, they in the first big interviews things they did, they let us talk to the special teams coach, Joe Galante, and I asked him, I said, how many Gator fans have come up to you and said it's very important to get 11 players on the field? And he said, oh, yeah, I've got a lot. So I do think I do think one reason that Urban loved John Summerall as a hire is Summerall cares about special teams. I think we're going to finally get that attention to detail. There's the energy is going to be there and the attention to detail. That's how you win football games.
Well, we all remember the Urban Meyer days when, he prided himself in trying to block a punt every game. And what is the stat? If you block a punt, the percentage of winning goes up to 75% or some crazy thing. And they would, I would be out of practice. I'd watch Coach Meyer and the special teams, and they would work on blocking punts, learning to dive at the right block point of the kick. And they would work on it for hours, man. it was just incredible. And it worked. We would block them like crazy or block field goals. And then all of a sudden, if you just kind of forget, it's almost like watching, I go out to high school football practices, and they won't even work on the field goals. It's the kicking. And I'm like, and I would tell these high school coaches, do you realize that every time your kicker goes out on the field, it is to score a point? It's just like, think about that, to score. And they just kind of look at me. Well, when you go over there with our kicker and teach him how to do it, we don't have time for that. It's baffling to me. And and Coach Galante, his record, because he came from Tulane, I looked up his track record. He was one of the best special teams coach in the country everywhere he's been. Guy's the real deal. And when I went out to practice, it was amazing. I just kind of staying out of the way. And he saw me and, Judd, get over. I didn't know he knew me. And he goes, come on. He goes, what do you see? And Durkin's form, do you think there's anything? And he was like, and you could just tell whatever. And I was there with Trey Smack. We were both watching Patrick Durkin kick. And we noticed a couple things, maybe with his steps back, that he was taking a little bit of an angle that was a little bit off. We both noticed immediately. And
wow.
Okay. Yeah, because you want to go, but you take it as a kicker, you want to go back straight, and then it has to be at a 90-degree angle, whether you're straight on or if you're on the hash, your line's got to be a 90-degree over. So you'll take a step back and you'll look, Tom, sometimes in a game you're nervous and you'll be on a line on the field and you'll take your angle in too far. It's got to be a 90 from the uprights, even though they're snapping from here. And if you take that too far in, you might kick a perfect ball, but it's straight and it's going to miss right. You see, there's little things. It's got to be the little stuff. And I noticed immediately the Durkin steps from like the left hash. He was going back and then going out instead of a 90. Right. And you don't, these are just little things you learn, but it's.
So did you get that fixed? That's the big concern I have now. Did you get that fixed?
Yeah. I wasn't running up, hey, kid, this is a legit kicker. He wasn't coming out of high school, and I didn't want to be one of those guys, but I was just kind of, and even Smack noticed it. So these are little things that you got to just take it in. And because like I said, that one kick is just like golf, doing the exact same thing over and over. And all of a sudden you set up one time with that ball position a little further up in the driver because this hole looks different. And then you hit it in the woods. That's why golfers and kickers usually are jive, because it's the same type of thing, you know.
Yeah. Well, I may go play today, and I'll probably hit it in the woods now that you said that, but on the first tee. But all right, it is time for us to play Yes, No, Where, or Maybe with the great Judd Davis. Of course, it is brought to you by Big Mill's Cheesesteak, street dining done the right way. And of course, all of our appearances on the show, we had Andrea Adelson earlier, and of course, Judd Davis now, are brought to you by Big Mill's Cheesesteak on the Zoom line. Yes, nowhere. Maybe you get free fries with the order if you say you listen to this podcast. All right. Number one on Yes, No Way, or Maybe. Eddie Pinheiro will have his record broken for a percentage at Florida this year by Durkin. 88.4% of his kicks.
Maybe, but I'm going to say yes, just out of pure positivity. I'm vibing to Durkin.
Well, I think the key will be that they can't ask him to kick it from too far if they're, you don't want to put him in that position too much. If he doesn't have the leg to do that, he doesn't have the leg to do it. So
well, that's Summerall obviously knows this kid because he's been with him, so he knows him better than everybody. But no, he hits kind of a high spinner ball. It doesn't have that trace smack, low spin, bomb power. But I mean, like I said, he made 2 over 50 or 2 or 3 over 50 last year. So but like I said, it's that 38-yarder in the SEC championship game that you got to have.
Or the extra point.
Yeah, well, yeah.
23-0.
That's true. I kicked a lot of those, a lot of extra points.
All right, number 2 on Yes, No Way, or Maybe. You might throw up. I'm sorry, I couldn't read my writing here. You, at one point in your life, you almost threw up before a big kick.
Not all. I guess one of the ones was that when we won 23-24 against Alabama in the SEC championship game, and it was 23-23 with 30 seconds left, and I remember running out there, and the clock was stopped or something for the extra point, and I remember thinking, if I miss this extra point, my life is ruined. I remember thinking that, which is the worst. It'd be like you might have a 2-footer.
Give yourself some positive feedback.
And I remember Ed just kind of looked at me, and he's like, he just kind of hit me. I didn't say it out loud, but you could tell. But even though it was an extra point, and then one time, Coach Spurrier, like I said, never said anything to me before a kick, hardly ever. And against Tennessee, I think my senior year was like a 42-yarder. I think I've told you this. I'm running out of the field, and I hear Judd, and I'm like, I stop, and I turn, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Make it." And I'm like, okay. And I remember running out there and lining up going, why would he say that? He really wants me to make this. And I was twice as nervous because he never normally just said field goal. And I made it. And he actually, one of the times he hit me on the helmet when I came back. But I remember, make it.
Make it. Yeah.
Don't say that to me.
Yeah, well, he said that to me over a putt before, but he didn't want me to make it. So That was a difference. Number 3 on Yes, No, Where, Maybe with Judd Davis. All right, your biggest accomplishment at Florida was not winning the Groza. It was passing Emmitt Smith for the most points ever as a Gator. Now, I don't think you have that record anymore. Chandler has it, I think, right?
Right.
But you did break Emmitt Smith's record, which is pretty significant.
That was really fun because for I don't know how many years I had it. It was just because if you break the record, okay, you're going to get mentioned. But to break Emmitt Smith's record, oh my gosh, we'd be in a bar or something. And my brother, this is 5 years after I was playing. And my brother said, see that guy over there? So he said, he's an all-time leading scorer in Gator football. And they'd see me. And they're like, what are you talking about? So it was actually a lot of fun. But like I said, a lot of that was Coach Spurrier, us. I mean, my senior year, first 2 games, I kicked 20 extra points in 2 games.
Wow.
I've been told that's a record, not on me.
That might be a record, yeah.
Yeah, it was. We scored at Kentucky. Kentucky, we scored 70, and then somebody else we scored 69. And I always say that's not because of me, but I mean, my senior year in high school, I kicked 15 extra points the entire year. So I scored a lot of points. I mean, I made my field goals, but to be the all-time leading scorer in the past Emmitt, and I remember I saw Emmitt 6 months later at some function, and I told him, hey man, I'm the kid, and he looked at me like, you broke my record. So he was really cool about it, but that was fun.
Well, hey, look, we appreciate you coming on the show as always, man. It's always great talking to you. We need to get out and play a little golf one day when you're not busy and I can get a ride somewhere. So
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. If somebody is going to buy ironwood and spruce it up,
yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping for the best.
Yep, that would be cool. Hey, I appreciate it. It's fun being on.
All right, see you, buddy.
All right, Pat.
Thanks. Okay, always great to have Judd on. We love having him on. He's a good friend and one of the great kickers in Florida history, and does help out with the Florida kickers. So that's great. And that is a cool story about him and Trey Smack being there and noticing a flaw in Durkin. Now, again, you don't walk up to a guy who goes, "Here's what you're not doing correct." No, I get that. But, if they ask you, you say, here's what I think it is. Anyway. All right, we've got a lot to cover still. We got a long way to go on the first game week of the year, because it is game week. We've talked about that. I believe game week is the first game of the year, because that's when I get excited. In fact, Zach was just telling me something I wasn't aware of, that there are FCS games tonight if you have ESPN Plus, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna watch them. Believe it or not, they can be crap, but I just want to see what's going on. Watch the first game of college football. I love it. I'm a nut. I'm a nerd. Okay, we've talked about that. All right, let us go ahead and get to our Adams Ribco Gator of the Week. It's brought to you by our friends at Adams Ribco, where tomorrow, Friday, you can go in there and get Nana's Nuggets, but always you can get great barbecue at Adams Ribco. All right, we've got a couple of several, I guess you would say, Adams Ribco Gators of the Week. We'll start with Sarah Hammond. I'm probably not saying her name right. Anyway, she was hired as the new assistant coach at Florida for women's tennis. 4-time champion, really good player at South Carolina. And I believe that, she was all SEC. 4 times. She's really good at South Carolina. And I believe that winners breed winners. And I believe you bring the winners in to help make winners. And I believe that. Doesn't mean you can be a loser and still be a good coach. But I think winners help. I think you get what I'm saying. And then also, I want to mention that for our Adams Ribco Gator of the Week, the cross-country team was picked to finish second in the preseason poll by the coaches, but it was like neck and neck with Alabama. I think I wrote it down here. How many? They got 6 first place votes, and Alabama, I think, had 8 or something. So yeah, it's close. And Florida's pretty good in women's cross country, and they're going to be better in men's this year. So we'll keep you informed about that. So those are our Adams Ribco Gators of the week, and we're getting ready to have cross-country season to add into the soccer and volleyball calendars, and everybody else is getting going here. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is the time of year that I love. Traffic gets worse, but it's still, you got to know where to avoid. All right, so let us get to our Hesser and Kipke. 3 Things is up next. Hesser and Kipke, with over 50 years of combined legal experience in North and Central Florida, Hesser and Kipke is your place for bankruptcy, workers' compensation, and family law. Call or text Ken and Jennifer at 352-339-9920, Hesser and Kipke. Okay, our Hesser and Kipke 3 Things. And by the way, yes, I did make a mistake there. I said it is instead of are, because it was plural. Things are plural. I do that every once in a while, but I'm a big stickler for that as well. All right. So let's start off with our number 1 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 Things. I usually don't show highlights with the Hesser and Kipke 3 Things, but every once in a while I drop one in. I thought I'd just drop this one in. This game happened last night, and it got me up out of bed to watch it. And boom, Kim, base hit, Braves win. The Braves win. They have won the game, and that is a walk-off for Atlanta over the Dodgers. Nothing makes me happier than beating the Dodgers, and the Braves win. And that was exciting. And that's the funny thing. I actually, I went to bed kind of started watching the game on, like the game tracker to see how it was going and everything. Everyone check with it every once in a while. And then I said, oh, it's going to the bottom of the ninth. You got to be up for that. You got to go watch that. So I did. And just in time to see Kim get the hit, who was a most unlikely hero of all. Anyway, but that's a big win for Atlanta because the Phillies had won earlier in the day. It's coming down to cases, as Skip Carey used to say. All right, let's get to number 2 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Big news out of the Big Ten, other than what happened, what we talked about in the first segment, but obviously Tony Petitti getting an extension of 5 years. He has done a great job as their commissioner. I look, he has established them as dominant in a lot of ways. Certainly, he doesn't get credit for their 3 national championships any more than Mike Slive or Greg Sankey should get credit for national championships that the SEC wins. The coaches, the players are the ones who win the national championship, okay? But it's the commissioners of the leagues that make all the TV deals and all that to help everybody have a chance. And he's been very good. Obviously, no big surprise there that he got that. And finally, number 3 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, Cal is taking the tarp off the stadium. Yes. I don't know if you were aware of this. Maybe you weren't. But Cal was putting tarps up in the end zone because, like a la Jacksonville back in the old days, mainly because they had terrible attendance and they weren't very good, and they haven't been very good for a while. But they're excited about this new coach, and they're excited about this season, and so they're selling a lot of tickets. So Ron Rivera, who's their their GM for the program and played there, of course, says we're taking the tarps off, and they're expecting a crowd to get near for their first game. They play UCLA in the first game too, and that's probably a big part of this as well. UCLA's probably selling some tickets to go to that game. But anyway, Cal is their capacity is like 52 with the tarps off. And whenever anybody starts talking about SEC versus any other conference, I go, look, it's still different in this conference than it is in other conferences. We don't have 52,000 seat stadiums. Well, maybe Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt is upgrading its stadium too. So anyway, all right, that is our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Let us move to our BMI TeleMed Smart Move of the Week. It is brought to you by our friends at BMI TeleMed, your weight loss specialists. Achieve and maintain with BMI TeleMed. And if you give them a call, you get a discount on your order. Just say you listen to another Dooley Noted podcast. All right. This was kind of stunning news to me when I saw this, that ESPN is apparently removing the thing at the bottom of the screen during games that says all the different scores and, all the different. Now, I will say this. My first reaction was, what are you doing? Why take information away from us? And then I realized, I go, Pat, how many times have you gotten obsessed with what was coming up there and quit watching the game? They're doing this for you with your lack of peripheral vision more than anybody. But that is the reason they're doing it. They tried it out during the Little League World Series, and apparently they said, yeah, let's go with it during college football games. So you're not going to have, now they will flash them up every once in a while, but it's not going to be this constant crawl across the screen. We'll see how I like that. But I think it's probably going to be less distracting. When you got 3 TVs going, it really doesn't matter what they're crawling across a lot of screens. So I'll be fine, but either way. But I think it is a smart move. All right, that is our BMI TeleMed Smart Move of the Week. Let's move along to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick pick. And those of you that picked the Braves to win 2 games, so far you're right. If you picked them to win 3, we'll see if you're right tonight. But hey, look, I appreciate your faith in the Braves. Of course, they are at home. But we're going to give you 2 football games, of course, because we're in football season, and I'm very happy about it. We're going to give you that North Carolina TCU game in Dublin. No spreads tonight. We're just going to give you the game straight up because I don't think anybody knows enough to really bet against spreads yet. You got to see at least a week of football. And then NC State at Virginia. Interesting game there to start off the conference. That was supposed to be played Brazil, of course, and the game got moved to Charlottesville. I have no idea who's going to win that game. So I think they're good. And that'll be 2 more opportunities to qualify. We'll probably do a poll next week. Maybe when Ben Troop is on, we'll get him to pull it for us, okay? I know Zach's probably tired of coming up with numbers. All right, it is time for us to move to our next thing, which is this, that, and the other.
Do you want? This, that, and the other.
Okay, this, that, and the other is brought to you, of course, by Darshackow Insurance for all your home, auto, commercial, and life needs, and by the Atlanta Hustle, the Southeast's #1 ultimate Frisbee team. We appreciate the Atlanta Hustle and Leonardo Law for being a sponsor of that. All right, so this, that, and the other. Here we go. This. I was a little surprised about some of the new. Look, we're trying to figure all this stuff out. But so Mark Mitchell's a really good player, and I think it was it Missouri last year or Texas A&M? One of those. I don't know. I get them confused sometimes. Anyway, it's not the point. The point is he committed to Kentucky, and now does he get the 5th year? And we don't know. Of course, the Denzel Aberdeen thing is totally up in the air as well, because that is the latest rulings that have come down, and they go, well, you can't, and now you can't, and now you can't. We don't know. It's still a long way to go. And the other is here. And this is one thing I just wanted to talk about, and that is, what are we doing here? Why are we continue to take opportunities away from people rather than grant them? Now, you've got 105 scholarships. I would guess most coaches are near it, which means that some kid is going to get who's a walk-on is going to get a scholarship when everything's settled and they're getting ready to start the season. Well, maybe he doesn't get it now because you bring in a kid from the NFL. What are we doing here? Now, and what are we doing when the NCAA doesn't grant the 5-on-5 until next year? Why not do it now anyway? That you could have solved all these problems, and kids could have said, "Hey, I don't need to go out." What are we doing here? I just don't know. I am perplexed. I don't think anybody knows, and I think that's the biggest problem. All right. That is our this, that, and the other for today. Let us move to wrap it up, and we will. I've been looking forward to this for about 3 months, when we get to do a Games of the Weekend brought to you by the Swamp Restaurant. We always love the Swamp Restaurant, where you can go get drink specials and food specials and watch all these games. There is a lot to watch. I'll just say it right now. Tour Championships on CBS, 3 to 6, or 3 to 7 and 2 to 6, I think it is. CBS, if you want to watch it, that's fine. It'll probably be on the third TV at some point. If you want to watch the U.S. Open, it's on ESPN at different times. If Ben Shelton's playing, I may have it on the third TV. But I'm watching football this weekend. And it starts at noon on ESPN with North Carolina against TCU. Again, that's at noon, and that's from Dublin. And then the NC State-Virginia game is at Virginia, 3:30 game on ESPN, which ought to be it'll be a really interesting game to watch. New Mexico State at FSU should not be an interesting game to watch, but I'll have it on somewhere. That game's at 7 on the CW. You may have to look for it, but you probably have watched some show like Golden Girls or something on there, or the Live Golf maybe. Anyway, that's going on Saturday. There is a game Friday night too on ESPN. Zach? What was the game? It was some kind of a FCS game that's Friday night on ESPN. So why not? Let's stay up till 10 and watch that game. I am going to at least tape it. I promise you.
Idaho versus Cal Poly.
I'm so jonesing for college football season. All right. You also have NFL games, and I wanted to give you these. Atlanta at Miami is a 7:00 game on Thursday, and then Tampa Bay at Jacksonville at 7:30. They're on the usual channels, local channels. Nebraska is playing Florida tonight. If you're watching this on Friday, you already know the result, but that's on TNT. Nebraska is a power. Florida used to be a power. Maybe they're starting to come back. We'll see how they do. That's at 8 o'clock. It's an exhibition match, but it's live on TNT. Kind of exciting to watch. I definitely will be watching that. And then Florida does host Stony Brook to open up the SEC season, or to open up their season. That's on SEC Plus at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Thursday, we have soccer, 6 p.m. against JU at home. That's on SEC Plus. Sunday, you have FAU on the road. That is on ESPN Plus at 2 o'clock. So that's plenty. That should tide you over until the first big college football weekend. And I've complained about the first big college football weekend, but I promise you that weekend is going to be it's going to be fun. I will find a way to make it fun. I'm trying to figure out what to do about the game and everything. I don't know. I'm leaning towards going right now, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. That's going to do it for our show. Thanks so much to Zach for doing a great job as always. We'll be back with another show on Monday with Coach Spurrier on another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI and Imaging and coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. I am Pat Dooley and I am deep. I am way back and I am out of here.